to the last chapter of Sutta Discovery, volume 42, that is 42.24, Saraganda Sutta, the discourse on the hardwood fragrance, or the core fragrance, if you like. Sara here means the solid part of the tree trunk, the best part of the tree, if you like, which is used by carpenters to make furniture and so on, or people who make fragrant wood, they use that part of the tree. This Saraganda Sutta, Sara means kind of core, hardwood. It also means essence, by the way. Ganda means fragrance, smell. The sutta number is S48.143. What is interesting actually here, there are 4 parts, or 4 suttas in fact. They appear to be, or they can work as separate texts. So we can even name them as S45.143 A, B, C, D. Each section has got a different theme. And all these themes are related in a very systematic way. In fact, you can use the model of the 4 noble truths to see how they are related. This gives us a very interesting way of reflecting on this sutta. To be quite honest, when I first looked at this sutta, I was telling myself, wow, this is quite a difficult sutta to teach. And I was almost ready to forego this sutta so that people do not find it difficult to follow and so on. But as I just looked through it, I felt, well, yeah, we can actually look at this sutta in a very simple way. I also was reflecting how blessed we are, how blessed I am to be able to have all these suttas with us. 40 years ago it was so difficult to get out the Tipitaka even, but now we can get the Tipitaka in all the various South Asian, Southeast Asian versions, even the Western versions. And we are blessed here because we can look at these suttas in the Pali version, translate them, various translations, not just one, and we can talk about these suttas, discuss them, and above all, meditate, having obtained a peace of mind with the suttas. We practice mental cultivation. In other words, we should never assume that the suttas are always there for us. We have to work with the suttas. The suttas are like alphabets. We must know the suttas very well, because if we do not know the alphabets, we do not know how to read. And we cannot say the alphabets are boring. The alphabets are what they are. They are letters. We put them together in a way that makes sense. So we look at the suttas, we try to understand the sutta, make sense of the suttas. The suttas are our tools for understanding ourselves. So we are not interested in them, and we rather go for some other mysterious teachings, some fabulous teachings, fictional teachings, things given by famous teachers but of no essence. We will not grow. We will feel falsely happy, as we might even have a sense of worldly accomplishment, but then we find we're getting nowhere. We keep on coming to the situation. We keep wanting more and more of that entertainment, of that joy, if you like, but without any sense of release, without any sense of joy, without any real happiness, in other words. So here is where the suttas are such that once you study them, you know them, it's like you forget about them totally and you're at peace with yourself. It's like good food. You've got to prepare this food well, they've got to be healthy and fresh, And then when you consume them, they're gone. They're no more there. They're inside you. You've internalized this food, and it makes you healthy. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel satisfied and happy, able to do things. So you forget about the food for a while, and you sit happily, comfortably, doing whatever you like, so to speak. So the suttas are like that. They give us this wonderful energy to see ourselves, to be ourselves, to just sit happily, meditate, look within ourselves. And in seeing ourselves, we also begin to see the world, we understand other people, so that we're able to help them. So in these suttas, in these 4 suttas, or a set of 4 suttas, in Tatasara Ganda Sutta, we have each of the sutta, or each of the sections has got a theme, or you can call them cycles if you like. So the first cycle is based on viveka, or solitude. So here again, the theme of diligence is there, because this whole volume is theme on diligence. Here diligence refers to the cultivation of the Noble Eightfold Path. It leads to solitude. Here solitude means that the body is peaceful, the mind is peaceful. Then section 2, or the second sutta, is the cultivation of the Noble Eightfold Path that leads to the abandoning of lust. Raga Vinaya, is the term I have used, the pushing away of, or reading of, lust. Lust, in other words, we are being drawn to things outside of us especially, because we feel a sense of not having it, so we want it, we don't really need it. Then the third sutta, or the third part of this sutta, is on the cultivation of the Noble Eightfold Path, leading to the death-free state, amata. This is of course nirvana. And then the third one is the cultivation of Noble Eightfold Path that is bent towards nirvana. Nibbana, ninna, bent towards nirvana. So from here you can see another interesting point is that these 4 themes actually refer to the 4 Noble Truths themselves, right? And of course, by extending this kind of idea, we can also see these 4 themes and relate them to the 4 levels of sainthood: stream winning, once returned, non-returned, and arahathood. So here, the first part deals with the path to solitude, or viveka. Here, viveka refers to letting go, being free from 3 things, 3 factors especially. That is, from self-identity view, from doubt, and from attachment to rituals and vows. And of course, this means stream winning. So this first section, the path to solitude, you can say deals with or leads to stream winning. Then the second one is the path to the abandoning of the 3 roots: greed, hatred, delusion. And as you know, the once returner, he too has abandoned the 3 roots: the sakaditi, or self-identity view, vicikicca, doubt, and silabbata paramasa, that is attachment to rituals and vows, plus he has weakened greed, hate, delusion. So it becomes a once returner, one more life to go, finish up the karma, and he awakens as an arahat. The third section, or third sutta, is the path whose goal is the death-free state. Amata is another word for nirvana. Okay, here actually refers to arahathood, okay? Or the fruit of arahathood. And number 4 here, the path that bends towards nirvana, or nibbana nina, refers to non-return. non-return. That means it's on the way to awaken. So we have to switch around the number 3 and 4. So in other words, we follow the ancient, the earlier listing of the Four Noble Truths. The ancient listing of the Four Noble Truths are found in the Buddha Suttas. Very rare, but they're there in 1 or 2 places. You find first the truth of suffering is stated, and then the rising of suffering, and then the path. In other words, you practice it, and then the goal, nirvana. So that's the natural ancient sequence. But in terms of teaching the Four Noble Truths, we first teach what is suffering, and then how suffering arises, and then the ending of suffering. So it's like, okay, these are the 3 things, and then let's do it. That's the path. Okay? So that's the well-known modern series sequence for the Four Noble Truths. So in this sutta here, if you use the older sequence, you find it's more natural. Now let's look at the sutta now, on page 131. The discourse on heartwood fragrance, the first sutta, Patamasara Sutta. Okay, if you look at them separately, they're called Sara Sutta. Patamasara Sutta, Dutiya Sara Sutta, Tatiya Sara Sutta, Chatutta Sara Sutta. First, second, third, and fourth Sara Suttas. The discourse on the heartwood or the essence. 1.1. This is the first sutta, okay? Originating in Savatthi. It shows that just as a monks, hardwood, red sandalwood is said to be the foremost, even so bhikshus, whatever wholesome states there are, all of them are rooted in diligence. Converge in diligence. Diligence is the foremost amongst them. So here again we have this familiar theme of putting in effort for the spiritual development. Bhikshus, for a diligent monk, this is to be expected, that he will cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, that he would make much of the Noble Eightfold Path. So here again, when we talk about effort, we're talking about the 3 trainings: cultivating moral virtue, cultivating the mind, and cultivating wisdom, leading on to liberation. Then the sutta goes on to detail how each of the limbs of the Eightfold Path is overcome using the Viveka formula, section 4. And how bhikshus, does a diligent monk cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, make much of the Noble Eightfold Path? Or you can also translate, cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, work on the Eightfold Path, or grow the Eightfold Path. Bahuli Kata, grow. Because here you have cultivate, grow, they are both terms, they are agricultural terms connected. And how bhikshus does a diligent monk cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, grow the Noble Eightfold Path? Here bhikshus and monk cultivates right view. And not just right view. This right view is dependent on solitude. It helps us to let go of the world, let go of thoughts, let go of feelings. Dependent on fading away of what? Lust, desire. Because once we let go of the senses, the desire for them also goes away. Dependent on cessation of sufferings. So with the fading away of lust, suffering fades away too. The ripening in letting go. Here the letting go is defilements, they're all gone. He cultivates right thought, that is a second limb. Again, the same template. That is dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away of lust, dependent on cessation of suffering, ripening in letting go of defilements. He cultivates right speech, that is dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away, dependent on cessation, ripening in letting go of defilements. He cultivates right action, dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away of lust, dependent on cessation of suffering, ripening and letting go of defilements. He cultivates a right livelihood that is dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away of lust, dependent on cessation of suffering, ripening and letting go of defilements. He cultivates right effort that is dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away of lust, dependent on cessation of suffering, ripening and letting go of defilements. He cultivates right mindfulness that is dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away of lust, dependent on cessation of suffering, ripening and letting go of defilements. And finally, he cultivates right concentration that is dependent on solitude, dependent on fading away of lust, dependent on cessation of suffering, ripening and letting go of defilements. In this way, bhikshus, the diligent monk cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path, grows the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the first mantra. Then the second sutta is the root removal sutta. Okay? It's not the first one, is the Viveka, Nisita cycle, letting go. In other words, if you first want to meditate, you have to learn to let go of certain things. In a sense, you might say the practice of Buddhism is that of different levels of renunciation. We have to sacrifice some time. We got to let go of certain activities that are less important or not important at all, so that we can have time to meditate. And when we meditate, what do? We first let go of the body, so that there is physical solitude. Then we let go of feelings or thoughts, there is mental solitude. And if you attain some level of wisdom, then there is spiritual solitude. If you are no more inclined to the bad old ways, you become a happy person. So this is the first part. But again, you have to deepen this kind of experience. We have to make it more permanent, so to speak. So this is the second sutta, Dutiya Sara Sutta, the root removal cycle. We've got to work at removing the roots of defilements, go deeper into the unconscious, if you like. Verse 1. Bhikshus, just as among whatever hardwood, red sandalwood is said to be the foremost, even so bhikshus, whatever wholesome states there are, all of them are rooted in diligence, converge in diligence. Diligence is declared the foremost amongst them. Bhikshus, for a diligent monk or meditator, this is to be expected, that he would cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, that he would grow the Noble Eightfold Path. So here again, this part is the same, talking about the primacy of diligence. And how bhikshus does a diligent monk or diligent meditator cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, make much of the Noble Eightfold Path? So here notice, same question is asked, how do you cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path? But it's raised to a higher level. Here bhikshus, a monk cultivates right view, ending up in the reading of lust, ending up in the reading of hate, ending up in the reading of delusion. Notice here, greed, hate, delusion are kind of being pulled out, the roots of suffering, if you like. And there are many of them, it's not just one or two, they're small little roots, you have to keep pulling them out. One main collection of roots, they are collection of roots, if you like. So you have to keep them, make sure every one of them is pulled out. In Malaysia and Singapore, Southeast Asia generally, we have a kind of wild grass, very much like the nettles in the West. And it is tall wild grass, it's called lalang. And it's got very sharp blades, serrated blade, it can cut you. So you can kind of trim, you can cut away all the long blades of the grass on the ground level, But before you know it, a few days later, you see the shoots coming out again. You have to uproot all of them. So here, these are the 3 rules, last 8 delusion. So every one of the 8 limbs of the path has to do this. He cultivates right thought. That ends up in the reading of last 8 delusion. He cultivates right speech to uproot last 8 delusion. He cultivates right, we can say we cultivate right action, right speech, right action to uproot, to get rid of last 8 delusion. We cultivate right livelihood, right effort to get rid of last 8 delusion. We cultivate right mindfulness, we cultivate right action, right concentration to get rid of last 8, get rid of delusion. In this way, bhikshus, the diligent one cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path, grows the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the second stage, right? It's a bit like the once returner working up to lesson the 3 unwholesome words. Now then the third sutta, Tatiyasara Sutta, is called the death-free cycle. So here again you see the way this is arranged is very much like the Four Noble Truth formula. Nirvana is mentioned first, right? The death-free cycle. Bhikshus, just as amongst whatever hard wood, red sandalwood is said to be the foremost, even so bhikshus, whatever wholesome states there are, all of them are rooted in diligence, convert on diligence. Diligence is declared the foremost amongst them. Bhikshus, for a diligent one, this is to be expected, that he will cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, that he will grow the Noble Eightfold Path. And how, bhikshus, does a diligent monk or meditator cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, make much of the Noble Eightfold Path? Same question again, but practice brought to a higher level. Here, bhikshus, a monk cultivates right view, plunging into the death-free, that is nirvana, crossing over to the death-free, ending up in the death-free. So all these 3 sentences, they refer to the same thing, reaching nirvana. He cultivates right thought for nirvana. He cultivates right speech for nirvana. He cultivates right action for the sake of nirvana. He cultivates right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration to attain nirvana. Now we may think that nirvana is such a distant goal, but in a sense we do experience a taste of nirvana, a glimpse of nirvana if we practice the Dhamma properly. In a simple experience of getting rid of anger, overcoming sadness, if you observe them very carefully, you begin to notice that pain is gone, the anger is gone. Where did it go? It does not go anywhere. We are free from the negative emotion and gives you a very wonderful, happy feeling. That is a foretaste of nirvana, a gentle hint of nirvana. Nirvana is a big scale, a permanent experience of such a great joy, if you like. Then we come to the 4th and last sutta, the 4th Sara Sutta. And this is called a nirvana-prone cycle, bent towards nirvana. So here again you see that the ratio is according to the popular list of the Four Noble Truth. The starting is the same as before, on diligence. Bhikshus, just as amongst whatever hardwood, red sandalwood is said to be the foremost, even so bhikshus, whatever wholesome states there are, all of them are rooted in diligence, converge on diligence. Diligence to declare the foremost amongst them. Bhikshus, for a diligent monk, this is to be expected, that he will cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path, that he would make much of the Noble Eightfold Path. And then the same question, how does he do this? Here, bhikshus, a monk cultivates right view, bending towards nirvana, sloping towards nirvana, tending towards nirvana, going nearer and nearer and upwards. So in a sense, this is like that non-returners, getting ever nearer to nirvana. He cultivates right thought, heading for nirvana. He cultivates right speech. He cultivates right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, directing his mind towards total liberation and happiness of nirvana. In this way, bhikshus, the diligent man cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path and grows the Noble Eightfold Path. Right? So there you have 4 ways shown in this sutta how we progress to diligence, meaning applying our mind to the Eightfold Path, our bodies and mind to the practice of the Eightfold Path in 4 ways. And these 4 ways are patterned on the Four Noble Truths. So knowing these things, we can continue with our deeper study of the Dharma, so that we are so joyful, we are energized with joy, we are able to sit peacefully, just doing nothing, not looking within ourselves, at peace with ourselves, truly happy with ourselves, just like the Buddha sitting all by himself, peacefully radiant under the Bodhi tree. So we end the study today. Now we've got to the end of this volume as well. With the next study we go to volume 43. There is all these suttas for us to study if we look carefully and make an effort to learn more, find out more about the suttas, and also do our meditation so that we can taste the joy and stillness and wisdom of the teachings. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. With the power of such good karma, many other good karma we have been doing, practicing generosity, keeping the precepts, practicing meditation, doing all kinds of charitable work. With the power of all these good deeds, may we attain joy and happiness and success in this life itself. By this very same good karma we have done, with the power of the 3 jewels, may we attain spiritual liberation in this life itself. At least let us aspire to stream winning. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all our loved ones. May they be well and happy. To all those people we know, to all those who are learning the Dharma, struggling to know the Dharma, may they be well and happy. To those whom the Dharma have not touched, may they quickly learn and taste the Dharma and be well and happy and liberated too. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.